So, Chris, you're bringing up win totals, and as Biscuit started us out here in the live chat, this schedule,
Mhm.
it's a killer schedule. It's plenty
Man,
tough.
hey, listen. We had a string. We had a consecutive year string where South Carolina had like the toughest schedule in the country. Mark, nothing can phase me on that schedule anymore. Like it's hard. It's the SEC. It's hard. I will say though, to your point, the thing that's scary about this schedule is this: the way it sets up in the sense that you could get to the bye week and not have an SEC win yet. That's what's scary. And I think for South Carolina to go 7-5 or better, because I've had a lot of my buddies out there in media, or I've seen a lot of picks. There's a lot of folks out there that are picking the Gamecocks. 7-5, Mark, is just sort of the safe, quote unquote, the safe pick for South Carolina,
Yep.
right? It's like they didn't have a great year. They didn't have a terrible year. 7-5. That's just sort of, and I don't want to say it's the lazy pick or the easy pick, but it's sort of the typical pick you're seeing. It's the safe pick. But I'm seeing a lot of folks picking Carolina to start 3-4, 0-4 in SEC play. And they're expecting the Gamecocks to beat Mizzou, Vandy, Florida, and Tennessee 4 in a row to get to 7-5. I just don't see that happening. I think that's asking way too much. And Mark, think about this. I would turn it on you and ask you this. If South Carolina, because here's the thing, there'll be no shame in losing at Arkansas. I've picked that as a loss. There'll be no shame certainly in losing to Georgia. I've picked that as a loss. For most out there'd be no shame for South Carolina to lose at Kentucky. Kentucky will be favored, right? I've picked that as a win, but it's a toss-up game for sure. There would be no shame in losing to A&M. They're going to be favored by you. You've never beat them before. But Mark, what is going to be the mental state of this football team if they're 3-4 and 0-4 in SEC play? What's going to be the mental? Because I can tell you this, I'm sure within the building, Shane Beamer will handle things accordingly. This fan base is going to be in pure panic mode if Carolina gets to the bye week and is 3-3, and for lack of a better way of putting it, doesn't have a quality win. You don't even have a quality win, and you're halfway through your season. You know what I mean? So I think starting 4-2 or better, I think is pivotal. Again, I've got the Gamecocks beating Kentucky. I don't think you're on that level yet to beat Georgia realistically. I think Georgia's going to be elite again. I really do. I've got Georgia going undefeated, believe it or not. I think they lose to Bama in the SEC title, but I think Georgia is legit again. I don't think they win the national title, but again, anyways, I think you need to split Arkansas or Kentucky. You know what I mean? And I picked the Gamecocks to beat Kentucky partly because I think Kentucky's a little bit overrated, but also, again, going back to the Spencer Rattler thing, it's like, if you're the Spencer Rattler that I know of, if you really are that guy, maybe this is unfair to say, but you don't lose to Kentucky. I'm sorry. You just don't. You just don't. And I think it'll be a great game. I think it'll be a great game between the battle between Rattler and Levis. But like you mentioned, Mark, the schedule, because of how it sets up, right? You swap out Kentucky and Vandy, where they're just located on the schedule, I think there's a lot different feeling about the schedule because it's like, okay, we're getting to the half point 4-2. We've got an SEC win under our belt. We feel good. I just, and I don't question that, we saw it last year. Shane Beamer and company were able to keep this team positive and overcome adversity and all that. But man, you get through this season at 3-4, 0-4 in SEC play, and then you got to turn around and play Mizzou at home, who you haven't beaten since 2018. You're just going to be in a really tough place, in my opinion. Do guys start checking out? Do players start opting out? We haven't heard about opt-outs that much this preseason, which has been kind of surprising. I just, how can you feel like you've gotten the return on investment from all these additions, not just Rattler, all these other additions? How can you feel like you've gotten the return on investment if you're starting out 3-4, 0-4 in conference play? Mark, I just don't think it's good enough to just beat the teams you're supposed to beat and lose the ones you're supposed to lose to. That's just not good enough. You know what I mean? If you're going to break through, I think you need to beat an Arkansas or a Kentucky. Get an SEC win under your belt. I'm not even saying you got to beat an A&M or a Georgia, but you just can't start 0-4 in SEC play. I just don't know. Sure, you could build momentum against Mizzou, Vandy, then at Florida would be a big win. I don't know, though. I feel like it's asking a little bit too much to ask this team to go from 0-4 to 4-4 in conference play and hit that 7-win mark. So I think to hit 7 or better, I think you got to split Arkansas and Kentucky.
Yeah. So as you lay out there, there's one thing to do the logistics and the math of the schedule. And there's another thing to say, put yourself in this team's place after 4 SEC games. If they're 0-4, even if it is reasonable to say
Right.
you can run the table and win the rest of your, it's just you get beaten
Momentum
down in
is such a
conference.
thing in college football. Momentum's a thing. I mean, it is. And it's just like, because at some point what happens, and again, I don't question Shane Beamer and company being able to keep this team positive and upbeat. But man, you start 0-4. I think you start looking around the room saying, can we win? I mean, is this, because then you start saying, well, is this working? You got a lot of new guys in that locker room, and Shane Beamer is still fighting. This isn't his roster. For the most part, it's not his roster. So I think the biggest thing people don't give credit to is like last year, what's so impressive, excuse me, with a lot of times with a first-year coach, you'll have players, if you're not winning at a high level, and especially if guys aren't playing, say, well, what is this coach talking about? What is he saying? This BS isn't working. I'm going to go back and do my own thing. So changing the culture, that's what people talk about, getting everybody to buy in. And they've done a great job. But like you said, man, you sit there, you're staring at 0-4. You hope what doesn't happen is guys start pointing fingers. I mean, think about it. If you're 0-4, the national people are going to be all, all over Spencer Rattler. They're going to be all over him. I mean, the second he throws an interception, people are going to be all over him. But if they're 0-4 in conference play, it's just going to be really tough. It's going to be a monumental task, a Herculean task to turn that around and make something out of the season.